Why do I read books, and why should you read books? Well, welcome to this video series called Reasons to Read. I thought about it yesterday. I was writing down some reasons that I like to read, and shockingly I came up with like 10 in no time at all without even thinking about it. So I just figured I would try and articulate those as best I can. Reason to read number 1, you can only cook with what's in the fridge. Basically, right, you can only be making stuff from things you already know about. When you're dreaming based on experiences you've had. When you're talking based on words you know and ideas you've heard. If you're a musician, you are using songs you know and experiences you've had to influence your content and so forth. And then obviously there's also the cases of straight up sampling or remixing or referencing or alluding, which is prevalent in music as well. Case in point, today I was listening to Mad City by Kendrick. I was reading the lyrics along with it. I was eating some ice cream on my porch and I was listening to the song and reading the lyrics. A lot of things to unpack in that song, but he says, obviously the corner between the sheets like the Isleys. And I figured that was a reference to, I thought maybe the Isley brothers, but I don't know anything about them, just other than they exist. So I looked them up and I was like, okay, cool, right, they have a song called Between the Sheets. And I was like, that's swell, I wonder what it sounds like. And I started listening to it and immediately realized it is the song the Notorious B.I.G. samples in his song Big Papa. And so it just felt like a full circle. Oh, Kendrick is referencing the Isley brothers who were sampled by Biggie, who's also referencing them in a completely different way. So long story short, you guys are very aware, you don't need me to tell you, artists steal from other artists. But I'm not talking to you only if you're a creative or a maker or an artist or a musician or whatever. You can only cook with what's in the fridge. That extends to your thoughts. You can only think things that you've been introduced to. If you've read the book 1984 by George Orwell, or you're just familiar with it, right? You maybe had to read it in high school. It's a dystopian. People are under control by Big Brother. Big Brother's watching you. But a really important part of the government in that situation, how they keep people from thinking, is by stripping their vocabulary down. Right? So instead of things being good or great or wonderful or lovely or terrific or true or beautiful, they're just good. Or maybe, I think, plus good and double plus good, right? Or if it's bad, it's just ungood. And they're attempting to reduce people's vocabulary so they can't express how they're feeling. And you and I know that you can feel better than good, or good in a different way than good. You can feel lovely, or you can feel ecstatic. And it's important that we have those words. I've heard this argument used more for vocabulary enrichment, like people saying you should use big words so that you can express yourself. That's true. But in the same way, I think it could pretty easily be applied to you should read more books so that you have ideas to express yourself. Reading is a way to add more ingredients into your mental fridge. You have more things to pull from, more ways to interest your brain. Did you ever think of biking down from Siberia all the way across the edge of China and then on to Australia and around the edge and then through Afghanistan and back home to England, even though you were never a cyclist? I didn't either. And then I read a book by Rob Lowell called Cycling Home from Siberia, where he does exactly that. And I was captivated. It's just such an interesting way to live your life. I never thought about that, right? Did you ever imagine what it would be like to fly mail, like fly physical letters to people who wanted to hear them? I definitely didn't, but then I read a couple of books by Antoine Saint-Exupéry. He's a hero of mine and I can't even remember how to say his name, but right, you read these books and then all of a sudden you're like, wow, that's beautiful, that's gorgeous. It doesn't have to be serious and intense like that either. It doesn't have to even be crazy, right? Like World War II or biking across the world. You don't have to read serious, heavy books. Like I own a really lovely copy that was a gift of The Complete Adventures of Winnie the Pooh. And there's something about that makes you think, what if I was a small stuffed animal that just lived in a 100-acre wood and occasionally hung out with my friends and that was it? And it makes you think. It just kind of lets your brain look at new areas of the world, right? You don't have to be learning like a crazy lesson. Sometimes you do, sometimes you learn a lesson, but sometimes it's more just the experience of it. Austin Kleon, I have his terrific book right here, Steal Like an Artist, as well as a couple others of his. He says, you are in fact a mashup of what you choose to let into your life. You are the sum of your influences. On the next page he says, you're only going to be as good as the stuff you surround yourself with. My mom used to say to me, garbage in, garbage out. It used to drive me nuts, but now I know what she meant. Your job is to collect good ideas. The more good ideas you collect, the more you can choose from to be influenced by. Now, Cleon is talking here to artists, right? He's talking about having a wide array of creative influences so that when you make your own art, it's got a lot to pull from. But I think the same can be said for just a regular human being, not trying to be an artist, not trying to make anything crazy, who just wants to exist and experience the world. The more you read, the more creative stuff you surround yourself with. And of course, this is not exclusive to books, but the more of those you put into your brain, the more thoughts you'll be able to have and the more remixes you'll be able to make. And I think, and I'm finding, the more lively and enjoyable your thought life, and by corollary, your regular life will end up being. So don't forget, you can only cook with what's in the fridge. That's reason to read number 1. And we'll talk about reason to read number 2 at some point.